Hi, Ricky, and hi, everybody who's joining. Today, we're going to talk about the eclipse in Pisces, which is taking place today at 2:09 Eastern Time, and that is 8 p.m. in my time zone, which is in Europe, in Switzerland. So we're very excited to talk about this lunar eclipse. It's very special because we also call it the blood moon. And we will get back to that. But I was just researching a little bit about why is it, because I always heard that eclipses have, in the ancient time, it was seen as bad omens. And I looked it up, like the Babylons, they thought it was a danger for the king, and that meant that they sometimes put in a replacement king during the eclipses so that the real king would be safe. And I saw in medieval Europe, it was seen as witchcraft, and it was bad omens for the harvest and so on. And in China, they thought when the sun disappeared middle of the day, they thought it was a big dragon that just ate the sun, and they were drumming and sending arrows into the air to scare the dragon away. So this was in the older days, and this is not how we see it today in evolutionary astrology.
No, not at all. No. And what's funny is there was another story. I love that you're bringing this up. This is like a history. This is my history nerd coming out. Back in the early 1500s, one of the techniques that Christopher Columbus used when he was going through his, I don't know the technical term, when he was conquering the lands or whatever he was doing. I don't know the technical term, but he used the eclipse as a tool to manipulate the people in the land.
Wow.
And he predicted that there would be an eclipse, and that he used this as a fear of like, this is what's going to happen, or God's going to release his wrath if you don't give me food. And lo and behold, the next day the eclipse happened, and everyone was so afraid because they were like, oh, how does he know? And so it's a fascinating story about how those eclipses were used. And again, research this. It blew my mind when I learned this years ago. But in evolutionary astrology, I don't think we approach this with such a fear-based, mindset. And I still feel that even today, there's a lot of people that try, like they look at this through the lens of fear. And I feel like when we look at it through evolutionary astrology, it's almost like, I like to say, fate and destiny have a unique way of coming together. And it's almost like these two placements, which all eclipses are formulated when the moon and the sun are within a certain degree point of the north and the south node. And when the north and the south node are activated, it's when the sun and the moon become eclipsed. And in short, it really has a lot to do with these karmic dynamics that have been unfolding for us in our lifetime. And so we look at it like, what are the themes that have been happening in your life around these eclipses? These eclipses happen almost every 9 to 18-year cycles. The one that we're about to enter, which within Pisces and Virgo. The last time the North Node was in Pisces was in 2006. And for us in evolutionary astrology, we're like, okay, hold up. There's patterns, there's themes, there's these things that are showing up for us. And it's an opportunity to say, what have I learned? What patterns are repeating themselves? What do I want to release? How do I want to move forward? What new opportunities are showing up for me? How am I being catalyzed into a new experience? And that doesn't sound scary to me. That doesn't sound like, oh no, the whole world is falling apart. I think sometimes fear and it shows up around the eclipses because there may be some people during eclipses where there are major life events that happen, divorces, losses, financial changes, job changes. And I always try to encourage individuals to look at this from a positive perspective, or at least filtering it a little bit by saying, well, if it's happening around these eclipses, that means that there's some purpose or meaning and intention behind these life changes that are happening. And you'll find that a lot of life changes do happen around eclipses.
Absolutely.
And they're not bad.
It's not bad. And what I find interesting by looking back to see how the ancient, our ancestors looked at the eclipses, was they didn't know more. They saw the sun. They were calculating everything and around their life, around the sun that they saw and the moon. So they didn't know that we know now when astronomy came in and can, calculate everything, and we see that these eclipses are part of bigger cycles. And some people talk about the eclipses as portals, where things are in a way opened up and rushed through. But it doesn't mean that everything will happen on the actual day of the eclipses, which of course, it is like sometimes you feel there's a new energy shift as we're coming up to the eclipse, 100%. And things are aligning that makes us, almost like frustrated, or we feel a change needs to come, or we feel we have events happening in our life that in a way catapult us into enough is enough, or this is not working anymore. And this is why people talk about sometimes it feels like a portal is opening, but we need to do the work. That is all about evolutionary astrology. We need to work with the aspects. We need to work with charts.
And where the eclipses are happening, right? So this specific eclipse we're talking about is within Virgo and Pisces. So we have to ask ourselves individually, what is Virgo asking of me and what is Pisces asking of me? And look at your own individual chart, see what house this eclipse is falling in. Mm-hmm. And then we understand a little bit more like, okay, it's happening in my second house and my eighth house. What are the themes of the second house and the eighth house? And how could this eclipse potentially magnify these themes for me? Where is that portal of energy coming in? Or where do I feel like I'm being guided to focus my attention? And I think when you look at that angle, like it removes the fear and the negativity of everything.
Yeah, but because the eclipses, the north and south node cycle, it stays for a couple of years. Yeah. So we do get, more than one chance to adjust and adapt and get that awareness and that different mindset. It's not just on the day, and if you don't get it, you'll miss the chance. We 100%. Do have things coming up to us. Yeah, but it will culminate. Yes. Yeah. And then it just also allows, it's not that if you don't get it today, what it is that is asked of us, what we are invited to understand and learn about ourselves, it's usual that it will take up to about 6 months going forward, where we can adjust and understand and evolve whatever that is the theme for us.
Correct. Yeah, I love that. And I think emphasizing the fact that the change might not happen today. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is the changes could have already started because we entered this eclipse window a little while ago. I look at it personally, I look at around 15 degrees before the eclipse. I actually know some astrologers that do 30-degree windows where it's like once the sun is 30 degrees away from the node that is going to be where the eclipse is happening, they call that the eclipse window. Yeah. The changes that have been happening in August for some people were not random. And so if you think about your August, if there were things that were happening, stress that was happening, tension that was building, or exciting opportunities that are showing up for you, I just encourage you to see that those are themes that are probably going to have a larger effect over the course of the next 6 months. It's not going to happen on the eclipse. For an example, I know individuals that are clients of mine that have filed for divorce back in March when the first eclipses were happening, and it just so happens they're signing the paperwork this weekend. Right. And it's like that it didn't happen at that first eclipse, but it was initiated at that eclipse, and then now is where the culmination is happening. So looking at it like these are windows of opportunities. That's why I think I like the word portal, because portal has this feeling of things are coming in. And they're going to stick for a little bit. We need to kind of see what the next couple of months look like, and especially like wherever this eclipse falls in your chart.
But it was interesting you mentioned about your client, because I also have a client, Dave, not his real name, but it's because you were mentioning how this happened back in March, and what happened then. We had eclipse in the Libra and Aries axis, and he had a partnership, which is, a business partnership. Yeah. And he was feeling that he was giving more to that partnership. They work in IT. He was giving more to that partnership than his other partner, and always being in this Libra fashion. Well, let's do it your way. It's fine. And there was a crash came. They lost a big contract, which meant they couldn't continue working together. And that made him realize that this was not a balanced partnership. which is very in line with the Aries and Libra axis. And now what's happening for him now is that there's new opportunity, new partnership, but he had learned the lesson that he needs to also be much more
Arian.
Going, Aries forward, and not speak up, and not, go into victim mood sometimes and say, oh, they don't listen to me, or my partner didn't listen to me. So this is also eclipses do not happen in isolation. They are part of a bigger pattern. And
yes,
you look back, people who are listening, if you look back and think about what happened in the time frame around March this year, where were you maybe challenged to think more about finding the right balance, whether it was a personal, romantic partnership or working partnership, the me versus you theme, which, leading up to this eclipse in Pisces.
Yeah.
So it was interesting, you had a similar story, but more a personal one, and it can also be a professional one.
100%, and it probably would reflect in both of their charts. Well, I know with my client, it was a huge 7th house and 8th house transit, and so I feel like you could see this in your chart. You could see when these changes are unfolding. So, would you like me to share the chart so we could see what this eclipse is looking like?
That's wonderful. Yeah, please share the chart. I always love to see things visually, then it falls into place instead of just talking about it.
Can you guys see it?
Yeah, this looks great. I love the Pisces symbol, and it's very Pisces. This, for the float away, in eternal happiness and connecting with the cosmos.
Yes. I'm just highlighting on our screen really quick, just so everyone can see where this total lunar eclipse is happening. Yes. And we have the sun in Virgo. And it is conjunct the south node. We can see because they're very close together. And then we have the moon in Pisces conjunct the north node, very, very close together. Yeah. Where would you like to start? Any like key things that you want to jump right into? Like what jumps out?
Yes, I would think let's start about where the south node is, which is in Virgo. And to think about, always when we have the nodes, it doesn't mean that the south node is bad stuff. It just means that we need to own that, and we need to, like, say, the higher expression of the Virgo principle, to own that in order to move forward. And the lower vibration of Virgo can be being too critical, being too focused on the little detail, not able to move forward because you get stuck in the details rather than seeing the bigger picture, which is more the Pisces realm. And sometimes with the Virgo, I love the Virgo energy in the way, I think there's so much potential for growth there, because I think we all have a bit of it in terms of how we grew up and how we were concerned about being loved and accepted for who we were, but we adapted very easily. Some people were very lucky. They were growing up and getting all the validation and appreciation they needed to become the best version of themselves. But I think in human life, for myself and clients and family, friends, I think all of us at time felt that we had to adapt to be loved and accepted for who we were, which is very like. And sometimes we would think, okay, as long as I'm perfect, I will be loved, as long as I'm doing everything right. And this is where this is coming from, where you are super strict and critical and judgmental on yourself and others, and you don't dare to embrace that larger acceptance of yourself and others, and moving forward away from it, because it can really be crippling and holding you back.
100%. Yeah.
So
I love what you said too. And the other two words, I love what you said. I'm just gonna add two other emotions to this. Is the feelings associated with guilt or shame.
Yes.
In two different respects, I could see within the South Node in Virgo being held back by guilt or shame. Yeah. And there's something within Pisces that wants to teach Virgo to recognize the beauty in the imperfection, and be able to
Absolutely.
accept, be able to forgive ourselves, be
Hmm.
able to forgive others,
Yeah.
and also recognize that as much as you would like to maintain order and control,
Yeah.
that it will not go always the way you wish it to go.
Hmm.
And that there is a flow to being here in this human world. And we need to be okay with that flow. And I think
I love
sometimes
that.
the
Yeah.
Virgo crisis that comes through, I associate Virgos with the archetype of crisis.
Hmm.
And the crisis that unfolds for them, it depends obviously where it falls in the chart, but what I would say here in an eclipse is being aware of, like you were saying, those perfectionist tendencies of the need to know the outcome of a situation. Like, how is
Yeah.
this going to happen? Like, I need to know,
Yeah.
like, when is this going to manifest, or when is this going to happen? How is this going to
Yeah.
happen?
Control, control. And it's not just, the control, if you sort of think, like, follow where it comes from. It comes from this, feeling safe, right?
Yes.
If I control my environment, if I control my relationship, if I control myself, everything's going to be fine. And that's why I love this pull towards Pisces principle about letting go and realizing you do not have control. Control is an absolute illusion. You
Yeah.
know, we can think, if we get everybody to line up around us and do what we want them to do, we will be loved the way we want to be loved. But it's
Hmm.
forced and it's
Yeah.
exhausting. So I
I
love
agree.
this, this,
Yeah. And
this,
And I'm going to
invitation.
challenge people in that. You just said,
Yeah.
I want to challenge people when you just said that, because control has so much to do with your past.
Mhm.
So I encourage those that struggle with the need to know, that struggle with the need to control the outcomes or situations that they're going through, to ask yourself where this first started. And traditionally, it comes out of a chaotic moment in our past.
Mhm.
So then we start to try to control things because we feel that if I can control this, then no more chaos will happen.
Yeah.
But we don't realize that we're creating more chaos by trying to control everything. And
Yeah. And
so,
we
I,
can't keep it all together. I think
no,
sometimes, if you are in a pool and you have a lot of like balls in the pool, in the
yeah,
water, you can hold them down for a given time, but
who
at one
knows?
point or other
Yeah,
they pop up,
yes,
because you can't keep them down and you can't control them. And this is, as you said, it's a bit of the conditioning we have, that if there were, and it doesn't need to be that people have gone through huge trauma, but I think we all felt when we grew up, there were situations as kids we didn't understand because we were little and we
yeah,
didn't have the mindset, the maturity, whatever. But there
totally,
would have been something that seemed out of control, which means later in life we come from a place of, okay, this was not nice, this was not a good feeling. I will do everything I can to having
yep,
it not repeat for me. And there comes the control that we all,
totally,
because we're scared of embracing this Pisces endless opportunity, where also because it's ruled by Jupiter, that's another
yep,
thing we're going to talk about, because it's making
yeah,
an aspect to the ruler of this eclipse is Jupiter. So I'm also thinking sometimes we just need to let ourselves go with the flow, just allow ourselves to go with the flow. um,
totally. I love that you brought this in. I'm going to highlight it for all of us that the ruler of the South Node is Mercury.
yeah.
Mercury is hanging out right next to this eclipse. It is hanging out. It's about 8 degrees away.
Yeah, so you could say it's still a conjunction, and I want to say something about that because I thought about it. What people might experience this time is some issues around communication, and again, what we talked about, the knots, the lower
Octave. Yeah.
expression of Virgo, because of course it's not all bad, but it could be this sense of critical
Yeah.
tendency that we all have, and we do it. It's like called unconscious bias, where we make quick conclusions about something we don't know the full picture of. So
Ah,
people might have a little.
yes.
It's worth thinking about the communication right now, because it's Mercury and how we communicate. Are we very judgmental? Are we jumping too fast to conclusions, or do we give people a chance?
Love that. I always lead with curiosity, not
Yeah,
judgment.
I love that.
Um,
Yes.
the other thing I want to add, whenever the planet that rules the South Node comes to the South Node, we want to pay attention to themes associated with the past. Are there past themes that are showing up for us right now? What planet is it? It's Mercury. So the conversations that are happening right now, are we noticing a trend or a pattern in what is showing up for me? And this can also be at the other points of this. Anytime the South Node is activated, could also be gifts. There could be opportunities, latent gifts that are within the soul that are becoming awakened, right? And so there's so much opportunity here. But what I would say is that because Mercury is the ruler of that South Node, at one level, the way in which we process information, Virgo, needs to change when the South Node is in Virgo. Because the Virgo side of Mercury is the processing of everything. Yeah. And when the South Node is here, everything. Yeah. And what the South Node of Virgo tells me is that perhaps the way in which we are processing what we're receiving is faulted. There's something wrong here that we need to adjust and rework. And the Mercury coming to the South Node could be this reworking process or the reconditioning, the reprogramming. But there can be faded conversations that are coming out of this eclipse that we want to pay very, very close attention to.
They can be life-changing. Sometimes these conversations, and
100%.
You know, I looked into a little bit about conversations. It's a guy called Tony Overbay. He has a concept he called the 4 pillars of connective communication.
Oh, interesting.
It's really, really interesting. So the first one is assume good intentions, you know, because sometimes we come to these conclusions that people are out to get us, or people are out to offend us, or something. And so assume good intentions. And the next thing is, don't go in and defend or explain, but ask curious questions as you point, and you know, lead with that to get that point of view. And then first, when that is established, you have better, because the whole idea is to keep the conversation going. According to Tony Overbay. And so the 4th pillar is about, after you ask the curious questions and you know you keep an open mind, and that's a time where you have then established maybe a really good connection, a trust in the other person, where they share, and then it's time for you to share as well. If we go off in any of these points, we might miss the misunderstandings are happening, and we judge too fast, and we don't open up, and we are defending our own points, whatever it is. So I think this Mercury in this eclipse is super important, as you said.
I agree.
It's super important.
Yeah, I love that example, by the way. Interesting. Where is that a book? Is that what you're...
So no, Tony Overbay, he's doing a lot of interesting podcasts. I've been following him for a while. He has one called Virtual Coach. He's a psychologist. And he has another one called Meeting the Narcissist. And I think he has 4 in total, but I've been listening to, and then he's been interviewed by a lot of other podcasters, but I really found this so interesting because we don't have those tools. We don't learn them. We should actually learn about communication skills in school.
I agree.
If we didn't learn it properly in our families growing up, it's up to us, of course, to learn as we grow older, but sometimes it takes us time, and we sometimes go wrong in relationships because we do not have the tools or the patience to listen to other people. 100%. So if we talked about some of these, a little bit more challenging aspects of Virgo, we can also say, when you embrace the most beautiful part of Virgo, that is that you want to help, you want to assist, you want to be of service, you want to, non-judgment, just how can I help? How can I show up for you? How can I do that for you? That is the beauty of Virgo. And but it is very interesting to look at the rulers and what they're doing. We were talking a little bit about Jupiter, which is ruling Pisces, the North node. And of course, everybody loves Jupiter, what's not to like, except that has also a shadow side, That can be the shadow side of Jupiter can be, and it's in Cancer at the moment. So in one way you could say, we're going to have everything being hunky-dory with our families and the nurturing and feeling at home and feeling that you belong. But there is also a square to Mars in Libra. So there might be conflicts coming up during this eclipse where it is not so idyllic and it is not so perfect, and things will stir up to the surface where you need to, or everybody, we need to think, use our communication skills, and if we didn't learn them at home, it's never too late to try and fine tune them. Apropos, I try to, still learn. But, Jupiter could also be that moment where that portal where we say, okay, what kind of opportunities would I like, what would I like to see happening? I've been through this, I've been through misunderstandings, I've been not being heard, because this is very Jupiter, being heard, being understood, telling the truth. And even if it causes some waves, I mean, Jupiter wants to tell the truth, and it doesn't actually care if it's not accepted truth. They need to be authentic. So where do we want to go forward, and where do we want to be expressing our own truth? But with Mars, we might have people going against us, not liking it, confronting us. Are we ready for that?
Yeah. I think you and I have talked a little bit about Jupiter and Cancer before together.
We have. We did a whole podcast.
A whole episode for the Star Post. So if you're interested in learning about the depth of Jupiter and Cancer, I don't remember what episode it was, but if you go back a few episodes, we did talk about Jupiter and Cancer. Yeah. Now, one thing I want to say about this one, when I first saw this, Jupiter does have a lot to do with our belief systems, right? What we believe about life. And with Jupiter and Cancer, it could be what we believe about family, what our thoughts are and beliefs are around family. And Mars is in a first quarter square to this Jupiter, which is in evolutionary astrology is what we call a crisis in action. And so there's it almost makes me feel like here some people may be wanting to step out on their own. They want to go do something. They want to make something happen. But there's something about how secure does one feel. Jupiter and Cancer is how safe do I feel in my own body? How secure do I feel in my own body? Where Mars in Libra is trying to consider what everyone else thinks and feels about the decisions that I'm going to make. And so what happens here is I could see that there can actually be a challenge for some people in actually taking action or doing something because they could be afraid about upsetting other people. And there's something also about being in this Virgo eclipse about guilty. Like I feel guilty about doing this. I feel bad about doing something, or if I do something, I feel shameful. There's this emotion that can come out of this. So I'm just watching how these planets are coming together, and Mars in Libra has so much to do with our commitments. And so I'm asking myself, what am I committed to? And do I want to stay consistently committed to what I am currently doing? Is this making me happy, or are my thoughts and beliefs changing?
Yeah.
Now, what's unique for me, I'm going to layer this just a little bit deeper for us. The modern ruler of this, the Pisces energy is Neptune.
Yes.
And Neptune is involved in a few different ways because Neptune is being ruled by that Mars, because Mars is the ruler of Aries. And at the same time, Jupiter is in Cancer, which is ruled by the moon, and the moon is on the north node. So both of these planets that are in a square together are throwing their energy down towards this other part of the eclipse, which is this Pisces and Aries energy. Yeah. And there's something about this that speaks to me about our sense of understanding ourselves. And you started to get a little bit into that when you were talking about the Virgo. And it's almost like, am I doing things to be perfect so I can be loved by people? Because that's the way that I've learned to receive love. You need to be perfect.
Yes.
And what this would get into is no. Unconditional love requires me, there's something about this, that unconditional love and that personal sense of independence and that personal sense of autonomy, and just being who you are is enough in itself.
Yeah.
And what could happen during this eclipse, because Neptune is retrograde, Saturn, and we said this earlier when we were off screen, but you can't throw Neptune in without throwing Saturn in, because they're hanging out together.
Yeah, they're hanging out together.
And so this is speaking to a larger cycle that we've been going through, because they're hanging out at the final degrees of Pisces and the very early degrees of Aries.
Yeah.
This literally speaks to a culmination of energy, of something is coming to a major end
Yeah.
for
Major
something
because,
very new to begin. And
yeah.
this newness has something to do with you, me, my identity, my core self. And I feel like I encourage people to be softer with themselves right now, to be more compassionate towards themselves right now. That it is okay if you want to do something that is different. It is okay if you want to branch out and go explore something on your own. It is okay to walk away from a commitment if it doesn't make you happy anymore. If your thoughts and your beliefs are changing, people are allowed to change.
Yeah.
Your opinions are allowed to change. Your beliefs are allowed to change because change is who we are as human beings. And there's something that speaks to this, that there is this change that's unfolding. And because Neptune and Saturn are retrograde, that clarity might not happen just yet. It might just be the feeling where you're like, oh, I'm feeling something is changing, but I can't put my finger on it just yet. I think you'll be able to put your finger on something once Saturn and Neptune station towards the end of the year. That
Yeah.
clarity may start to happen for you. And then as we pave way into our next sets of eclipses in February and March of next year, we're like, oh, maybe I now understand what this was all for and
Yeah.
where this momentum is taking me.
And you're so right to mention Neptune and Saturn, because the fact that they are in the late degree, and especially, Saturn has, I think it's just went back into Pisces. It had just
Yeah,
gone
September
into
1st.
Aries.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the fact is, I look at these retrogrades around the 0 point, to, oh, wait a minute, there was something I didn't get. I need to go
Exactly.
back and revise what was the
Something.
teachings, so I can go forward.
Yep.
So when you think about Pisces, it's the last sign in the zodiac, and it contains all the information in a way of all the signs and all the qualities and all the teachings. And then when it comes into Aries, it's really, okay, we start a new fresh cycle with, a new 30-year cycle, actually, right? So
With
it's a
Saturn.
big deal. Yeah, with
Yeah.
Saturn, which is going all the way around, and it is a big deal. So now we have the chance to go back and revisit. And Saturn, it's not a very comfortable place in Pisces, is it? Because Saturn is all about structures, building foundation, and
Yeah.
Pisces is all about dissolving them.
Yeah.
So
Like
it's a
how
bit of a
I always
contradiction.
exactly like how do you build structures in the middle of the ocean?
Yeah.
And
They
what
did,
happened?
and they had, what was it called? The underwater town. Was it
Yes.
Polaris?
Yeah.
How did
And the
they do
thing,
that,
and what I always would say is like I feel like as well, a way that I lean into Saturn in a transit is the concept of what is being restructured. And so we're restructuring something. There's something left in the
Yeah,
Piscean realm
yeah,
that wants to be restructured for us. And I feel like I love your perspective of looking at it like a 29 to 30-year journey with Saturn. And what's happening is when Saturn comes back into Aries and when Neptune comes back into Aries, these are brand new evolutionary journeys for us. And we're beginning with Aries, which has something to do with our desire to become, to act, to do something, to initiate something. But we need to do it in a new way.
yeah. We
And
show
so,
up, show up.
yes,
I love that, because it's very action oriented sign, and it's very me oriented, and it's brand new.
yeah,
Who do I want to become? After I've gone
bingo.
through the whole zodiac, like in a symbolic way, I've gone through it all. I've been there, I've
Yeah.
done it.
And
How do
what's
I want to
next?
show up now?
Yeah,
Who do I want to be?
I
I
love
want
it.
to take the good part. I want to take, and the challenges, yes, it's Mars. Mars is courageous, and sorry, Aries is courageous, and it will meet the confrontations and challenges head on. And
Yeah,
where in Pisces is more like, where do I grab? What can I get hold of? What can I anchor into myself? It can be confusing. It can be a confusing time for many people.
which is one of the shadows of this lunation for the
Yeah.
gene keys was confusion and doubt.
Oh yeah, you
Um,
said that. Yes,
a
that's very
very
interesting.
very and I've known so many people right now that are feeling that way.
Yeah.
And Pisces wants us to lean in.
Mm-hmm.
And it is wanting us to have faith and trust in the process, knowing that you will not know how, when, where. We have to trust.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot easier said than done, but there's no better time to start practicing during this eclipse.
No, and let's talk a little bit about how it's easy to say surrender, the Pisces principle, surrender and trust the unknown. How do we actually do that? It's, I don't have the answer, but I mean, let's think about when sometimes when we don't look, we can search for something, like there's a butterfly, you look for butterfly and you sit down, it comes to you, right? So I think a little bit about surrendering in, don't try and force something. Just believe that things will come to you when you open yourself to it, obviously, but you can't force it all the time. And this is the hard thing about surrendering, just like we talked about, to lose that control, or we can feel we lose that control, but by losing the control, we open ourselves up to different experiences and opportunities.
Totally. I love your question. I think that's a great contemplative question that I'd actually love for people in the comments to share their own experiences with how they are practicing this. One thought that I'm just thinking of is, the desire to want to break out of that pattern. Mm-hmm. I always encourage people to start with reading a book, for an example, like The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Mm-hmm. And one quote that he has in that book is all about being present in the present moment. And that to be anywhere else would be to be insane, because all that exists is the present moment.
Yeah.
And many times when we think about the future, the anxiety of the future, the fears of the future, has actually so much to do with our past. And what happens is that by simply practicing mindfulness and being in the present moment is actually a cure to needing to know the outcome of everything. That if you can just simply be present with where you are in this moment, listening to this audio or watching us on video, being in front of a tree or brushing your teeth or whatever it might be, is a great start to beginning to restructure our own conscience, to stop the process of seeking more, or trying to control, because that has so much to do with the past, it has so much to do with the future, and what's missing is being present. And what I would just say is that you will become old one day and look back at your life and wish you would have lived more in the moments that you had. But you were so focused on living in your future because you were so anxious about it, or the past, and carrying things that you never fully lived in the present moment. So you missed what was happening right in front of you.
Yeah, that's a sad thing. But I'm coming back to, I'm loving all of this, what you're saying. And I know a lot of people, they benefit from meditations. I am so bad at that because my mind is way too restless. But I find one way to be present is to be in nature. Be there.
Which is a meditation, though, is that not? It doesn't. Meditation doesn't have to mean sitting on a yoga mat.
No. For me, it's like a moving meditation. Get the feet on the ground, because that's also very needed when you have a lot of Pisces in your chart as well. You need to get grounded. But I want to come back to what we talk about. We do that work, be more present, and all that. And we talked about that portal that opened up, and what that means, it means a lunar eclipse is like a full moon, it's a charged full moon, and so we should now have all the information that we needed, in order to make decisions for our life going forward for ourselves. And if you think about it, like, in order for us to walk through a new portal, we need to let something go. We need to be, brave enough to say, I let this go now, whether that is a judgment about myself, within myself, that I held, a belief about what I couldn't do or could do. I mean, usually they're limiting beliefs, but it can also be people in your life that you don't want to, you feel that you're not showing up as yourself and there's no room to grow with these people. It could be your creative pursuit or whatever, but we can also ask ourselves, what parts are we willing to let go of in order to walk through that portal into our next chapter? because it's not easy to let go, because when the devil we know as opposed to the one we don't know can sometimes make it hold on to something that is not in best interest.
Yeah. I love it. I think I always say, once you can let go, you will then glow. And we need to it's very Scorpio Plutonian energy. It's like we need to accept that change is a natural byproduct of being a human.
It's a constant transformation, you know. We're no longer fearing, you know, the bad omens of the eclipse. We see them really as part of our human evolution. Yeah, and how can we embrace that change? Because one thing we know, it's nothing is really standing still. Nothing really. And if we are resisting that, we're actually not giving ourselves the opportunity to live our best life.
100%. Very well said. I appreciate you, Charlotte.
I appreciate you. Should we just also, before we go, mention that on the 21st, we have a solar eclipse?
Yes, we have that final eclipse of the season,
Yeah, and it ties in, I mean, that will help us by then to have more clarity of our next steps that we might want to take based on the knowledge we have now and, you know, going forward.
Totally. It's an interesting eclipse. It's at the anaretic degree of Virgo. It's 29. Virgo.
Another 29, another 29.
And so we're dealing with a lot of these faded degrees. That's very, very important. And so I would look at in your chart where these portals are opening for you, or where they have already been opened, and really reflect on the past. Since I think the first actual eclipse that was bringing in Virgo and Pisces was September of 2024. We had an eclipse that was bringing in this Virgo Pisces energy. So doing some reflection and looking at what kind of these themes have been for you up until this point. And, you know, as always, if you feel confused, if you're having doubts or you're having questions and you're trying to lean into this, you can always schedule a session with Charlotte or I to go more specific into what these eclipses could be presenting for you.
Look at exactly in the chart which houses and what these planets are doing, speaking to your natal planets, because that will give a whole additional context to the story.
Totally.
So
yes.
But thank you for everybody for checking in with us. We love sharing with you. We love to hear back if anybody want to share. Give some good ideas and tips and just sharing. That would be wonderful to hear from you. And we see you next time.
Yes, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, Vicky. Bye.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye, guys.